that we are here for you. And we are the integrators between all the different Israeli governments and also the Israeli entities in the governments, different ministers, and also with the private sectors and other entities in the ecosystem of foreign investments. Let's talk a little bit, let's dive in a little bit about our authority. We have four main pillars, the blue ones that you can see here. The first pillar is our marketing challenges of showing the Israeli economy all over the world and to bring more and more leads into Israeli capabilities. From your side, it's actually to help the investors from your country to expand their businesses into Israel if they want to come and to expand it. After me, Aviad, that he's one of our investment relations specialist, will show you his way of dealing and helping you through the process, taken from those leads to a real investments here in Israel. And we are not stopping always only here, but we opened a service center for you and for different foreign investors and foreign companies, MNCs, to come and whenever they have also in their daily day activities inside of Israel, we are here to help them and to make sure that they will have the best time and an easy to help them in the ease of doing business. And all of that is based over on the work of Shai that he's doing here in Invest in Israel. And it's all about the database that we have and the knowledge that we have in the opening here in Israel. So when I'm talking about the Shai capabilities and our research analysis, we can see the fact that we are looking about two different point of views. One, we are looking outside about different, we can say different trends in the ecosystem, in the industry. We will look about different government policies, and we will look directly into the strategy, the growth strategies of different MNCs. From the other side, we will look also about the Israeli ecosystem. We will look about our ease of doing business. We will look over our industrial capabilities and about the whole idea of the Israeli startup nation, as you all know that. And all of those will provide us the capabilities to help you, and also it will help us to understand where we are going to. We are doing a lot with all those data collections. We are sitting in the OECD. We have a forum of different parallel agencies in the OECD. We are dealing with a lot in the Israeli government as a specialist about this section in the foreign investments, and we are helping for all the decisions process to make sure that it will go as smooth as possible. As I said before, the second pillar about marketing, we have two capabilities that we are working on. But before that, let's see what we are looking for. One of them is we are looking for investments that will provide an agenda or an added value for the Israeli ecosystem with jobs, with open the peripheral areas, and so on. All of those will lead us to two main pillars. One is that working directly to the companies, and the other one, it will go broadcasting worldwide with all kinds of different communication channels like Financial Times and Wall Street Journals and others, and to make sure that people will know what we are doing here. And of course, we are trying always to um, uh, to be as transparent as possible and to give you the knowledge that you need and all the the details and the data that your investors and your client actually will need here in Israel. Um, we are doing that with all kinds of different sectors, and we are doing that with all kinds of different models of investments. And one of the things is also an initiate of Shai that he's doing in these days, and that's to do a joint surveys with economic attachés here in Israel. And I will ask Shai later on in the closing remarks to expand on it. Um, we are doing surveys to understand the potential between different countries, the economic potentials. We are doing that together with you, and whoever will be interested in participating in that can go back to Shai and to do it with him. Um, as I said before, we are doing our campaigns everywhere, social media and so on. Let's talk about a little bit about Aviad jobs later on. That is will help you, and it will help you and your clients throughout all the ways. The ways that we are getting our leads is from all kinds of different channels that you can see the list right here. As you see, it's also from you guys, and it's also from all kinds of conferences or the marketing and other governmental entities. And he will escort you throughout all your ways and all the obstacles that you will see in the throughout until that you will have the investments here in Israel with answers to RFIs and to find the right and the potential investments, to help you to take the decisions, to make sure that you will get and you will know all the grants and benefits that you are entitled here in Israel. Those are things, one of the most important things is it's only to know what will be your roadmap, what will be your next stage that you need to help to your investor, to your client. And we are here for you to make sure that you will know that and you will have an easy process. And as I said before, our last channel, the fourth one, it's our service center that we opened. It's actually a call center that we are running here in Israel to make sure that also in the daily day of the foreign investments and the multinational companies, they will get all the help that they need with all the different bureaucracies here in Israel. And I'm talking about visas, once again, grants, and everything that you need here in the custom or the immigrations or the tax authority. We are here for you. And we are always saying here in Israel a quote of Einstein that says that we cannot go and we cannot solve the problems of tomorrow with the way we are thinking today. So we need you and we want you to challenge us, to make us think once again, what will be the next big thing? What is the help that you need? Let us to know what is your challenges. That's the only way that we will get more and more success stories here into Israel. The one of you that are here sitting in Israel knows that those numbers, they are for Israel, they are big numbers, and we are here all over the country. And for me, what is most important for me to say to you is come, reach us again, challenge us. You can do it directly. You can do it with Shai. We are here for you. And that is the most important thing for this day, to all of us together to learn, for all of us together to learn actually what we are doing, and to see how can we work together as a community, as one ecosystem, to understand how we can join forces and to learn one from each other in these challenging times. And as you know from today, from yesterday news, Israel, not only in the COVID-19 challenges, we are going also for a new elections. So in all these arena of uncertainty, it's very important to work together and to get any help that you need. And we are here for you and for that. And so thank you all once again, Shai, thank you. And I hope that you will have a very productive day or a meeting in the next hour. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Eyal, for your kind words and for a very profound presentation. And now I'm welcoming Mr. Aviad Tamir to discuss the Israeli technology solutions against the pandemic. Aviad, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. A pleasure being here this morning. So I'll try to make it brief. Thank you all for the presentation. I'm eager to listen to the next presentation and also be available to you guys to continue and answer questions after the presentation. So I'll start with a bit about digital health and digital transformation. In the last 3-4 years or 2 years, we see there is a lot of all the verticals and the sector collide. All the digital transformation take all the barriers down. So we can start with the medtech and pharma. Then we saw automotive and medtech, and we saw cyber, everything, a lot of collaboration. From if we're talking about automotive, so we see sensors that they can be in the car and can evaluate your body metrics and whatever. So we see a lot of collaboration and a lot of new players entering the market. And we see also big tech. Big tech, until I would say 2 years ago, you would see company like Google, IBM, they would more like service providers. Today they are in the forefront of developing robotics and healthcare solutions. We have insurance, we have automotive, and this led me a bit to the COVID. So during the COVID-19, I was also grateful to be part of the COVID-19 National Task Force. And so I saw this trend even more enhanced. You see even more players. You see hotel chains, coming and asking for COVID-19 solution, looking for disinfection solution, for instance, for robots or for special disinfection for the buttons for the elevators. So we see today there is many players coming, and also investors looking for solution for diagnostic, for disinfections, for protective gear, for masks, etc. And I want to share with you interesting slides that showing that a new player that coming from different sector, which is the defense. So, full screen. So if you can see it, I think that there is something that's called dual technologies. It's technologies that coming from the defense sector and can apply to different sectors. It could, for instance, give an imaging, the pill cam that that the X-ray the gastric. It came from a chip of a missile from Rafael, and we can see today, drones that are used in the defense, also using the ACTEC. And during the COVID-19, we saw even more enhancement of this going to the healthcares. And this is some of the collaboration here that you can see that was developed or started to be developed during the COVID-19 between defense and healthcare. So on the left, you can see Vocalis Health. It's a voice analysis platform to diagnose COVID-19. You can diagnose the COVID with a voice signature. We can see also any vision, biometric facial recognition to detect COVID-19 cells. A lot of the development was development to kind of like a touchless remote monitoring, meaning you can go to the ER and without even see a doctor, you can see based on a camera or a sensor, you can see a body metrics, if it's fevers or other things that can identify that you might be in a risk to have a COVID-19. So we saw a lot of this kind of development. And so this is very interesting in this way. Second. So the last thing I wanted to mention, because I wanted to keep it brief, I'm looking at you guys as a commercial attachés here that promoting trade and also investment. And definitely you meet a lot of new players, players that not coming just from the healthcare, coming also from could be a big corporate that's looking for solution to integrate in his country. It could be in Peru, it could be in Vietnam, it could be in Sri Lanka. And when looking for these solutions, you can approach to me. I can be happy to navigate and help you to find the solutions, or even investors that looking to invest. We can see a lot of unknown, because usually there is investors that very savvy in healthcare. And after the pandemic, we saw a lot of investors modify, their or shift their investors a bit towards healthcare. Instead they maybe invest in blockchain. They wanted to invest more in healthcare, doing good to the world. So everything regarding healthcare and wellness, happy to connect you guys and provide information. I'll put it also in the chat, and feel free to be in touch with it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Aviad, for wonderful insights regarding the technological aspects that can change the shift against the pandemic. Now for the second part of our roundtable, I'm welcoming Mr. David, Innovation Advisor at the Embassy of Switzerland, about his experience regarding the implications of COVID-19 pandemic and his activity. David, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you. Let me share my screen.
Pleasure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Okay.
we see you.
Okay, perfect. So I will do it very briefly. I'm the innovation attaché at the Swiss Embassy in Israel. What I decided to focus this short conversation about what we do with regards to the big multinational companies from Switzerland and the Israeli startups. And that's why we love to use this analogy. Switzerland has a lot of multinational companies that some of you are aware of, like Nestle and Credit Suisse and UBS and ABB and Lonza and Novartis and Roche, and the list is long. And there's a lot of interest from those multinational companies with what's happening here in the startup nation. Of course, we all know why. Israel is an innovation hub and it's very diversified, so we can find a lot of clusters in food technology, for example, and we all know what Israeli has to offer, so I will not go into too much details. And just briefly to show you Switzerland, the numbers in Israel are very remarkable. About even during this year, the investments in terms of venture capitalists in Israel, Switzerland is behind. Okay, Israel has between 4 to 5 times more investments in startup companies. So we see a lot of engagements from those from super tankers. And the last few years, we've seen them engage into coming to Israel to explore and having delegations to just have a first glimpse at the ecosystem. What can we do? And then some of them are doing some strategic partnership, just for example, with venture capitalists. One of them was published recently between Roche and Amun. Roche and Amun, the VC that was founded by Marius Nacht. And some of them also, along this journey, decide to invest more. And we have Lonza, which is now a lot in the news because Lonza is behind the manufacturing of the Moderna vaccine for COVID-19, so a very important role during this pandemic. They have an R&D center in Israel, and we are trying to facilitate all of those interactions, all of the companies that are starting from awareness, first delegation, and then some of them, we help them to find the right partners. If we cannot help them, we will provide some recommendation to other organizations, consultancy groups, or whatever. So this is very, very briefly what we are doing in this area. I didn't mention other areas that we have involved, like in the academic sector. But let's talk about COVID. So basically what we've seen, COVID for us is a very disruptive event. I can share with you that in January, February, we had about 10 events and delegations, only in January and February, from all over, universities, multinational companies, startups and investors from Switzerland coming to Israel. And we had planned from March till today 25 events that none of them happened. So we had to cancel 25 events because there's no travel. People are not coming here if they have to quarantine 14 days in Israel and then in Switzerland. We all know that. So basically, what I can share with you is that if there is, let's say, let's imagine a funnel where there is information flowing to Switzerland in this use case that I choose to share with you. Okay, there's also the other way around. What's happening with Israel going into Switzerland, looking for other things. There's awareness. Then some of them are coming to Israel. They show an interest. They do their first steps. They come with a delegation. They meet startups. They meet maybe Israeli Invest Authority, and they meet the Israeli Innovation Authority. And then it's a process, and it takes time. Sometimes they come again. There's a decision that needs to be taken, and then there's an action. The things that I mentioned before are things that are ahead of that. So if I talked about Lonza, that happened 2-3 years ago. Now there's an R&D center. Roche and Amun are behind this process. But what happened and what I can share with you is I feel that this part of the journey became much more difficult. So things that were already in the pipeline, companies that already been in Israel identified some opportunity to engage with the Israeli ecosystem. This is working. Okay, we even saw some strategic partnership between, it was in the news, Migro, which is a large company with an Israeli startup in the substitute for meat. Those are things that were published that I can share. This is going on because there's a relationship and we can build on that and continue. The early stage of the funnel, from my experience, has been disrupted. We are still figuring out what we can do to still continue to bring value to those that are interested. One thing that we did is very early, we partnered with the Shiva Medical Center and the Swiss Startup Association, Healthcare Startup Association, and we tried to provide, and we basically got 40 startups from Switzerland that engaged with the Shiva Medical Center to try to work on things on the corona. We also took a part in this effort in April when we had a crisis of testing to bring 2 machines from Roche to Israel. So there's a lot of focus now from our side on the pandemic, and we are still trying to find a way to get to a new normal and see what's happening. Some things we can do online, some not, and I will stop here because I think there's other speakers that need time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present, Eyal and Shai, and if you want to engage with me, it's easy. You can find me on LinkedIn or you can contact Eyal. Thank you. Looking forward to hear the other speakers' experience.
Thank you, David, for a wonderful insights and review of this last period under COVID-19. Our next speaker, Mr. Patrick Mayor, representative of the Australian Embassy. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Shai, and it's great to be online with colleagues from over 30 countries, a huge achievement in pulling this together. Not only colleagues, but friends. I see Francesco, Alfonso are all on the line, so it's great to see you again. You know, David mentioned just now that COVID was probably the most disruptive event that we've experienced. And from an Australian perspective here in Tel Aviv, we completely agree. We had a huge number of events and delegations in the pipeline, over 50 business delegations, and a lot of them have been put on the back burner. Business is still very excited to come to Israel, but obviously that might be some way off. And much like Switzerland, despite the disruptive challenges of COVID, Australia's been very keen to look at new opportunities. Let me just give you 3 recent events which show, despite COVID, we're still progressing collaboration. So first up, in October, we helped a joint venture be established and promote that joint venture. It was a joint venture between Israel's aerospace industries and a huge Western Australian mining company, Biz Industries. So that new joint venture called Automate is focused on the next era of autonomous mining. So that was really exciting to work on that. And it's incredible that that happened without kind of in-person signing or meetings. Secondly, one of Australia's biggest venture capital funds, Square Peg Capital, just closed a $450 million fund, and that will be primarily focused in Israel. And they'll be tapping into some of their priority investment areas that they've announced, things like medtech and the like. So quite a bit of investment into Israel happening there. And third, our trade minister was very kind in giving us an early Christmas present on Monday when he announced that we would soon commence a feasibility study into a free trade agreement with Israel. So quite a bit of work to do there over the holiday period, but it's very, very welcome news, and I'm sure we'll be engaging with your ministry as that progresses. Just three very quick points from an Australian perspective in terms of how we've adapted to COVID. No surprises here. Everything we have done in the early phase went online, and where regulations allowed, we had in-person engagements, but adapting online quickly was critical. And I see online that we've got Michael Platt, who heads up our West Jerusalem office. He did extraordinary work delivering boot camps for Australian startups that are interested in Israel's ecosystem. So, you know, we've had boot camps so far in ag tech, in blockchain technologies. In February, we've got a boot camp on artificial intelligence, and down the track on medtech, digital health as well. So shifting to online boot camps has been really important. As part of this, we've also had one-on-one mentoring sessions with Australian companies and startups interested in the Israeli ecosystem. Out of SOSA, we have a landing pad, an innovation landing pad. So we've used that architecture to do that. And also where we can't engage Australian businesses face-to-face and provide advice and intelligence, we've developed online digital briefs. So in December, we released a market insights brief that was looking at the Israeli economy, opportunities for Australia, opportunities for further collaboration. So shifting online has been critical. Secondly, engaging Israeli government contacts. You know, before it was great going to Jerusalem or meeting contacts in Tel Aviv, having that conversation in person. It's obviously been much more difficult. And to be honest, I feel like I've had a bit of death by Zoom since the onset of COVID. Nonetheless, I've been really impressed by how rapidly my Israeli contacts have taken up Zoom, and we've progressed a huge number of initiatives online. I'll just mention one. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Scott Morrison are both part of the Austrian-led Smart Management Leaders Group. So that's seen quite a bit of work between myself and Israeli counterparts, including the National Cyber Directorate. And that's provided really useful opportunities to discuss how we can learn from each other on dealing with the coronavirus. The last thing I'll say is that as a diplomat covering political issues as well as economic, this pandemic has rapidly changed the focus of our work. So we've seen a lot more of our work prioritizing reporting on supply chain issues, for example, access to the vaccines, what Israel's exit strategies are, the availability of cargo flights. So at times I've felt a bit like a diversity football back that's been thrown onto the pitch, and 1 minute has to play goalkeeper and the next left wing. Nonetheless, it's been a nice challenge to report on these COVID issues. And I think with the benefit of meeting a lot of people on this call and sharing insights, we're all learning how to adopt to the new coronavirus era. So I'll leave it there, Shai, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Patrick. Your insights were very precise regarding the cooperation between our countries and also the potential of capital funds to boost the economy. Very good. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Alfonso Valencia, Minister Counselor of Embassy of El Salvador in Israel. Alfonso, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here in this online meeting. Who would have thought that we're going to be on soon on December 2020, facing such a balagan, let's call it in that way. But however, something that I learned in Israel is that every problem could be an opportunity, which means this 2020 for us as an embassy, and we're still working hard during the crisis, and for sure that we will continue after it. To give you a briefing about the embassy, we're a small embassy, but as our country itself, we're strong. We don't have any specific economic attaché. As a minister consular, I'm covering the economical cooperation and another affairs in the embassy. But just to let you know about our country with the new vision of our government by the president Nayib Bukele, we are working to make El Salvador a great destination for investment. But also, we know that a good relationship between partners is a give and take situation. So I'm sure that if we open that door, we can work together with you and we can attract people from El Salvador to invest in Israel. So just to let you know, we are, for the first time in our history, we have an innovation, a secretary of innovation. In Israel is the Innovation Authority. So I'm sure we were planning a delegation for this year, but we know the situation. But I'm sure that we're gonna host a delegation soon, and I hope that we can come with you guys. So I'm pleasure to discuss the topic that you sent me to share our experiences during the crisis of COVID-19 and how we adapt ourselves to this new reality. About the events that we did in Israel, we did on the last day of November, 30th of November, we did an event doing business in El Salvador. I know that the intention is to attract the business to El Salvador, but our idea is to open that door. I'm sure that we can have a delegation from El Salvador to Israel, and they can know more about Israel. And for sure, maybe they will have the idea to invest here. That's the idea. So we did that event with the help of the Latin American Chamber of Commerce, and something really good. We did it with all the regulation. We did it in person. It was really important to have the participation of our Vice Minister of Economic Promotion from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Patricia Comandari. I can say that it was a big advantage of this new era because all the diplomats will understand to have that level in a meeting without the corona will be like a little bit difficult. It should be something face to face with a delegation, with all the protocol. So for us, it was really important. It was an opportunity, as I said, in this difficult time, to have the chance to have a high level authority talking face to face with the people who wants to invest in our country. So this is an event that we did on 30th of November, and how we support a foreign investor for our country to invest in Israel. I remember one of our first meeting, this Zoom meeting, when we were facing the new reality, it was with you guys. I remember Eyal from that meeting. We were talking about how we can work together. That was one of the first one. I'm still having the screenshot. At the beginning, for me, the screenshot was okay, I will save it to show my kids in the future. But you know, I have a lot now because a lot of meetings are in Zoom. So yeah, to be honest, we are working to put Israel in the list of countries to invest. We are showing the benefits to invest in Israel. As I say, I remember our first meeting to create that back and forth business opportunity. And thank you so much for your support, Guy. And in relationship to the tools that we provide to the foreign investor in order to help them expand their activity in Israel. With your help, we sent the foreign representative questionnaire, and our representative back home filled authorities. If someone is interested there in El Salvador, we are doing. I see the other colleagues, you know, and when I heard the numbers, I'm like, wow, I would like to have something like that. But we're making baby steps, but we're moving forward. So I think in the future we can have maybe not that numbers, but we can have something to work together. about the creative ideas, main challenge, recommendation. I think everybody can give many ideas about the new reality and how we adapt ourselves. But as mentioned before, this new reality help us a lot to break that bureaucracy, if we can call it in that way, and have a direct line with our decision makers in El Salvador, for example. Of course, the 8 hours of difference played an important role. We changed the suits. I think I'm not the only one. We changed the suit for a suit jama, I call it, when you only put the suit, the tie, and then you're with the pajama. I'm sure that everybody understands what I'm talking about. So sometimes we start to work in the embassy at 9 a.m. dealing with the stuff that we have in Israel, but we are getting ready at 4 p.m. to start to work with El Salvador. That was a problem with to have that direct line. So after a few Zooms, we ends up a little bit zombies. But that's the new reality. We're in front of a computer talking with everybody in the other side of the world. But it's good that we have Salvadorian coffee, so we're still awake. This is another topic that we can discuss in the next meeting. But I'm sure that this new reality is bringing new ideas, new opportunities. It's really good to say that nobody was prepared for this. But as a millennial, I can tell you that the technology it's playing an important role, and it's something good that our country also has a millennial president. Our president Nayib Bukele is 38 years old. We as an embassy, our ambassador Celaria is 35 years old, myself 29. So, you know, as I say, here is my office. This is my office. This is the only thing that I need to work, and I can work from everywhere, not with the consular issues. I should come to the embassy to solve that. But yeah, it's a new reality. So I hope in the future that we can work together. We can host a delegation, and it's good to have you here, guys. And I'm sure that we can open that gate with our countries. And as an embassy, we are more than welcome to help you. As I always say, we are the bridge between the two nations. So you have my contact. If you need something, if any colleagues need something, I'm here. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share our experience. Thank you, and I want to wish you a good 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alfonso. Thank you very much for your kind words. Our next speaker, Mr. Sophronis, head of Cyprus Trade Center at the Embassy of the Republic of Cyprus. Sophronis, the floor is yours.
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Shai. And Eyal, of course, for organizing this. Very interesting. Already from my counterparts and colleagues, I'm hearing very interesting things and very diverse kind of aspects of the work that was done in the different embassies. Thank you, Alfonso, for mentioning the El Salvadorian coffee. It helps to get a kick and a boost in the morning. So I'll briefly go through our experience at the embassy with a main focus on the work of the trade center or the economic arm, let's say, of the embassy. So definitely the impact from the pandemic was experienced on all fronts. Just a few words on how it was experienced in the embassy and how we treated it as collectively as an embassy. So we followed the different health and safety protocols in coordination with headquarters, but also in coordination with Israeli authorities. And looking into the last 9 months in practice, we've been through various stages. It's a roller coaster. So we've been through full teleworking mode, cluster mode, rotation schedules, office presence with stricter or lighter limitations. So the whole thing is constantly assessed and changed. So it was very interesting from a point of view where we have our strategic planning, we have a full action plan for the year, we have our planned events and so on, that all of that is turned upside down. And we're in a position where we go week by week or monthly planning at most. So that was something that all of us as an embassy had to adapt to. And I think we handled it quite well under the circumstances and of course the limited resources that we have. So looking into the economic aspects, as you know, Cyprus is the nearest EU member state to Israel. We're only 14 minutes away, so it's definitely a preferred destination for Israelis to visit for holidays, but also for business. So traveling obviously was disrupted. That means that all of the planned visits for conducting business or planned trips for tourist purposes were either put on hold or canceled. So looking into the impact from a higher level perspective, we can look into the fact that Israel is our third largest tourist partner. So for the last 5 or 6 years, there was an exponential increase of Israelis visiting Cyprus. So we closed 2019 with about 300,000 visitors out of 4 million total tourists arriving to Cyprus. So it definitely had an impact on our tourism and hospitality industry, not being able to host Israelis during this period. Also, in terms of trade, Israel is our fifth most important trade partner. On that front, because the trade profile is in its majority built on 3 or 4 core products, mainly industrial, we have seen a small drop in volumes, but we assess that as a temporary, let's say, hiccup, and we don't estimate any permanent impact in the trade. So I think on that front, we will be able to recover, and gradually within 2020, hopefully conditions are becoming better, and we will see the volumes returning back to normal levels and go back to the increasing trend. Just to give an idea, we're mainly talking about primary need commodities such as fuel, cement, and food products such as fish, for example. So we definitely see that this will continue and we will go back to where we were. So in terms of investments, which is really, I think also the focus of the host of this event, it's very interesting to assess the impact or the different trends that we've seen during this period. So normally we have a lot of small, medium scale investments in the real estate and hospitality sector. So we've seen a bit of a slowdown, because usually this kind of investments, you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to go and visit the sites. So this was kind of put on hold. On the other hand, we've seen that we had commitments on major projects, such as, for example, the large project of the redevelopment of the Larnaca Port and Marina in Cyprus, which is a project of at an estimated cost of more than 1 billion euro, which is taken by Cypriot Israeli Consortium. So we had the signing ceremony on the first week of December. So it's a huge mega project for the standards of Cyprus, obviously, and having the investors' confidence, going ahead, signing the project and being ready to start implementation, it's very, very encouraging. And of course, we've seen that things that could be done remotely, such as, for example, registering a company or legal entity in Cyprus in preparation of moving business there. We have seen several Israeli companies being able to do that during this period. So I think this also goes to our ability to deliver some services remotely and not having the need for people to be physically present for signing documents or doing any other relevant activities. So the situation at hand from our side, so our work, as all of the colleagues can verify, has a lot to do with people. We prefer to have the face-to-face meetings. In a lot of cases, this kind of interpersonal connection might give the edge to actually agree on something, on move things forward. So we shifted into another state of play. So we use this period to do a few main things. This is how we reestablish our priorities. So we took advantage of educational opportunities. So any webinars or digital conferences that could give us knowledge and help us to think or rethink things that we're doing, we try to take advantage of it. And it was a bit of a reflection period. It allowed us to take a step back from the busy daily routine and just think where we want to go and what kind of activities we want to achieve in the coming period. We focused on internal processes. So in our case, even within this period, we moved ahead with the recruitment. So we got a person on board. Obviously, the integration of someone in the team, if not done face-to-face, is a bit more challenging. So it was an interesting experience to be able to deliver that successfully. We focused a lot on introducing digital collaboration tools internally for the team, but also we improved our extroversion in terms of social media and reach out to our business community to deliver information and be more reachable to them during this period. Focusing from what our ministry did as a priority, they pushed the export help desk concept, which is a dedicated service to support businesses wishing to export. So we were like the second line support for that, and we received special requests for Israel, which we tried to provide support and create some kind of business connections for the Cypriot businesses. So this was one of our key priorities. We focused a lot on doing outreach for distributors, retailers, the importers community in Israel, to make sure that we push the Cyprus brand or the interest, let's say, of Cyprus to export products and get them into the Israeli market. And of course, a lot of media exposure, similar to what Invest in Israel did. So we tried to do within our resources available, let's say, some interviews with Israeli media and Cypriot media, just to maintain the Cyprus brand or image in people's minds, let's say. So I would like to close with food for thought. So 4 or 3+1, let's say, lessons learned that I would like to leave everyone with. So lesson 1 is review strategy, tactical and operational planning. Obviously, what we have done before does not necessarily apply with the new conditions. So in our case, what we did, we set quarterly targets. We had monthly reviews, and in essence, we were actually doing weekly monitoring. So this kind of served us well, and it's something to share. Lesson 2, colleagues mentioned it already. We had to fight we have to fight from now on the Zoom fatigue and increase effectiveness and efficiency in the digital events we do. So short events, targeted, limited participants, but high impact is what we would strive for. And this is what we're planning for 2021. So also maybe a call to the colleagues and Invest in Israel, pooling resources during this period is also important. So we could look into running an event with regional importance, let's say, and have countries from the region coming together and connecting with the Israeli business community. This is an idea to discuss. Lesson 3, improve digital infrastructure, team collaboration tools, and increase extroversion in terms of social media. This we focused a lot and we've seen the benefits. So I think it's very, very important to look into. And the last lesson would be try to capitalize on existing platforms. So we have a very good connection at bilateral level with Israel. We have established a trilateral cooperation platform with Israel and Greece, which is extended also in the 3+1 format with the participation of the US. So we have established agreements. We have established memorandum of understanding between different entities. So the platform is there. We just have to trigger specific activities under those agreements. And not to put that on the side, I think it's very important to acknowledge the effect that the Abraham Accords have in the region. As a regional player, I think it's important to assess the economic impact and opportunities stemming from those agreements and see how we can further collaborate on a regional basis to create joint projects. It could be infrastructure, logistics. We're seeing new trade routes being developed. It could be in joint investment and activities in the research and innovation domain. So I'd leave it at that. Thank you again for the opportunity and looking forward to discussions and further collaboration with everyone.
Thank you, Sophronis. We almost forgot how is it to work without Zoom. So thank you for reminding us. Now our last speaker, Jonathan Ruta, First Secretary and Trade Commissioner at the Embassy of Canada to Israel. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. It's so great to see everyone, even though it is through Zoom, like everyone else mentioned. I'll try to be succinct. I think many of my colleagues who presented before gave a strong overview of the challenges and new realities we face, and I think a lot of these are shared. Overall, Canada and Israel, like I'm sure many countries on the line here, have very strong commercial ties in trade, bilateral foreign direct investment, science, technology, and innovation cooperation. At our embassy in Israel, we have dedicated officers on ICT, defense, life sciences, agriculture and ag tech, transportation and infrastructure, as well as science, technology, and innovation cooperation. And I think some of the areas where we see the most collaboration in terms of R&D and innovation is in AI, life sciences, next-gen manufacturing, alternative proteins, and ag tech, which are the sectors where Canada and Israel are both world leaders. As others have mentioned, COVID has been a significant shock. Canada still sees a fair bit of baseline activity and continued work in all the sectors that we mentioned. Our trade section at the embassy has had an increased role on COVID-related issues and reporting. Our government has been interested in Israeli innovations, procurement, also sharing to Israel what PPE items, for example, Canada can offer for sale, and just knowing how Israel is approaching the crisis. So I think that's how our government has utilized our trade section. But yes, as I mentioned, there's a large level of baseline activity in the commercial area. Part of this is because of our large Jewish diaspora in Canada. We're the third largest after the United States and France outside of Israel. Of course, commercial links go far beyond that, but I think that base level of people-to-people links ensures that there's a high level of ongoing collaboration. 2020 was going to be a very big year for Canada-Israel commercial ties. We had just in 2019, at the end of the year, had the coming into force of an expanded free trade agreement. We were going to have a renewed bilateral treaty on industrial R&D collaboration, which has been delayed since both governments are focusing on COVID. And we were really looking forward to the Israeli presence at Expo in Dubai and had a number of events planned there. And I think in general, like others, we had many business delegations canceled. Just a few examples off the top of my head: a boot camp on digital health that was supposed to take place in Israel, some bilateral visits related to autonomous vehicles, and visits on brain health and aging research that were supposed to take place. Overall, I think the major issues that we see are the same as some of the things my colleagues mentioned. Travel, of course, has been the major impediment. People-to-people meetings are very key, I think, in increasing collaboration. I think quite significantly for us was the major trade events that were canceled due to COVID-19, such as Cybertech, Biomed, and others. These anchor events really do attract a fair bit of Canadian visits, and a lot of business delegations try to center their visits to Israel and their interest in the Israeli market around these events. So I think canceling those events has maybe made attention focus elsewhere, or not concentrated attention on Israel. And I think my colleague from Cyprus just mentioned COVID is a roller coaster. And I think something that we've noticed in Canada is that the roller coaster in each country was different. And so we weren't synchronized. So when Israel was going into lockdown, might have been a calmer time in Canada. When Canada was in lockdown, Israel was more open. And so it was hard to get business colleagues focused at the same time, since they were dealing with different issues. In terms of tools that the embassy provides to clients, I think we continue our base services to clients, albeit virtually and by phone. These include briefings on the market, mentoring with Canadian clients, providing contacts in the business community here, etc. We've tried some new things that I think have had a fair bit of success. One of the big ones is turning to mass web events. To try to get more companies engaged, both in Canada and in Israel. We've used several times different webinars on specific sectors or topics to provide information at large to a large group of people. This could be opportunities in Israel for Canadians, or briefing Israeli companies on opportunities within Canada. More on a global scale, the Canadian government has been doing a number of virtual trade missions headed by a minister to try to get some more visibility. These have been successful. I think we've done this more in the latter part of this year, and we'll continue through next year. And we've also tried to do some efforts, including ministers, on inclusive trade topics, such as to focus on women-owned business, indigenous business, or minorities. And these have had significant interest online, and it's something that will likely continue. What we're looking at doing in the next quarter, in partnership with chambers of commerce, both in Israel and in Canada, as well as the Israeli embassy in Canada, is to do briefings on opportunities on Canada-Israel trade and investment at a regional level in Canada. So focusing on different provinces, or even at a municipal level, and trying to engage mostly small and medium-sized businesses in these sorts of events. We found that a web presence has allowed many small and medium-sized businesses who wouldn't be able to dedicate the time to travel to Israel to participate and learn more about opportunities in the market. And I think in the coming years, we're going to see the fruit of that effort, where this interest and information has been shared with them. I guess in terms of a few positive things, we have seen interest from a few new sectors and new players due to COVID. Companies in Canada that have pivoted towards med tech or life sciences issues have been interested in Israeli innovations. We've seen increased interest from Israel in Canadian agricultural products and ag tech. So I think those are two of the sectors where we've seen an increase in interest. And then Israeli Hasbara can be very good. I think sometimes maybe too positive. I think a lot of great articles come out from Israel 21C or Startup Nation Central about Israeli innovations that do get into Canadian media or that Canadian companies see online. Sometimes it's too early stage and it's not a feasible product yet. You know, it would only be in a theoretical stage, for example. But I think that it's great for Israel to have these organizations that really do a good job at promoting Israeli products, because it raises interest abroad. In the past couple of months, I think we've seen an uptick in long-term planning. I think with COVID being so long, we now have Canadian companies looking at what they can do in the future. And so the number of calls I've had on companies looking for potential R&D collaboration going forward has gone up significantly, I'd say, in the past couple of months. So I think with a vaccine on the horizon, there's some more positivity. So I think I'll leave it at that. And thanks again for the opportunity to chat.
Thank you, Jonathan. You proved us that the last speaker can always contribute new points of view. Thank you. If there are any, well, we've finished our second session. So if there are any questions, you can post them on the chat. Meanwhile, I'll just say that the future holds two sectors: the combination between nanotech and biotech. And we're going to see that in the next 5 to 10 years, this will be the focus, and these industries will be able to develop vaccines in a matter of minutes, and the vaccines will be able in a matter of days to immune the entire world. So this is the future. It will become feasible in the next 5 to 10 years, nanotech and biotech engineering combination. And so it's going to be a very interesting future to see how it develops. Okay, I see no questions. So thank you for all the participants in this unique events. The lessons we learned today will surely be useful for us in the upcoming months as we cover from COVID-19 and its implications. I bring the floor last time to Eyal. Eyal, any last words?
First of all, once again, thank you, Shai, and for all the participants. Thanks for the countries that help us to understand how to work. And I want that everyone will think about the ideas that were here on the floor today, about the boot camps and about how it's important to enlarge your contacts in the Israel arena, and also among you guys, among other colleagues. That's the interest, and that's the aim of this meeting. And it's not to publish invest in Israel, and it's not now to bring the investments here into Israel, but we are all of you here as a community and together to see how we can take things to the next level. And as I said earlier in the beginning, first of all, all my details here in the chat. You can contact us, and we started to do all kinds of surveys with parallel countries about the potential of investments. Shai is managing it, and then we are publishing it, and it's help also for our governments and officials to do those, to understand how to use and how to approach and the potentials between the countries. So it's very important for us that you will all be part of it. And I want to tell you last thing from a personal point of view. I'm hoping that that will be a beginning of a tradition of a community here in Israel. And the more, the merrier. I know that there are others initiates that are trying to and doing that already. As Alfonso said, one of them we are already. There are times that we are meeting in different places already. So let's just make sure that we are in touch and for you to know that we are here for you. And really happy Christmas and that all of you have a good New Year.
Okay, so that's it today. And thank you all for coming out today. And see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.
Ciao.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
שי, אתה רוצה להישאר דקה?
To our last participants, I will say thank you for joining us again and see you next year. It's coming very soon.
יש עדיין אנשים, אז אני מוציא אותם בכוח, והם עכשיו להתקשר בטלפון ולדבר בטלפון. דקה דווקא מצלצל. אלו? שנייה. אלו? כן, אני בזום, חוזר אליך. טוב, אני סוגר בכוח, כי יכול להיות שזה אנשים שלא...